We are back. Hello beautiful people. I know it's been a very long time. Your girl has been injured, but really badly this time, and I went through a very difficult time of my life. I'd say the second hardest. I'll dive deeper into that topic in a sec, but just to start with, the purpose of this video is to update you guys on my situation and to let you know what's been happening for the last few months, personal life, business, everything. I am currently in Spain. It was last minute, it was not planned. So why am I in Spain? A few weeks ago, I was really struggling with my health, mental health and physical health. My back was really bad, and on top of that, I also had very bad skin issues. At the start, I thought it was eczema. Since I'm a baby, I am struggling with eczema, but I've never ever had flare-ups like that. I was also extremely stressed because with my back, my skin and everything going on, I was spending a lot of money for my health. The physio, the neurosurgeon, the doctor for the skin, going back and forth with the GP and having to do bloods, and it was just non-stop. I do have Medicare. If you're French, Medicare is the carte vitale, but the carte vitale is much better. Medicare doesn't cover much. I was working in a restaurant as a waitress. I was also working in a gym at a Zero, which is a lovely gym environment. I loved it. And I was also doing online, which is, you know, my main thing. I was working non-stop 7 days a week. I was exhausted. My days were basically waking up, going to the gym at like 3-4 a.m. in the morning because I couldn't sleep. I would wake up in the middle of the night, so hot, sweating, itchy, scratching everywhere because of the eczema. But yeah, I would wake up really early in the morning, I would train, then I would head in the city, do some PT sessions, then I would go to the physio, then I would come back, do more PT sessions, and then I was working at the restaurant, the night shifts. I would go back home. By the time I shower, eat, go to bed, was around midnight, and then I would sleep for 3 hours. And I would repeat that again. So it was just non-stop. My stress was through the roof, and my back was not recovering, probably because I was doing so much and because my stress was that high. That's probably also why I was struggling with my skin. But yeah, I was in a very tough season of my life. It just felt like everything was going downhill for me, and I kept on asking myself, when is this going to stop? Let's be honest, I was depressed. Earlier this year, I applied for the PR, which stands for Permanent Residency, and I was waiting for my visa. I was so close to just say, visa application, I'm just going to book a one-way flight ticket to Spain and move there. It felt like I was intoxicated, as if I was allergic to Sydney. I know it's crazy, but with my skin, some people were saying, oh, it's probably due to the water, so you need a filter for your shower. Got a filter for the shower. Then some people were saying that, oh, at the moment there's a lot of people struggling with allergies because of Sydney's dust. I'm like, oh great, something else. So the air that I'm breathing is probably toxic as well. Anyways, everything was just so overwhelming, and I felt surrounded by a lot of toxicity, so I knew I needed a change. I was really close to just give up on all the life that I've built, that I've created in Australia over the last 8 years, to start over again in a new environment. If you don't know me personally, Spain has always been the country of my heart. From the start, I was saying that if I cannot get a permanent visa for Australia, I will move to Spain. But for me, Spain has never been plan B. It's always been plan A, bis. So I was not scared of having my visa application rejected, because I thought life is just going to push me in the right direction. So if my visa gets granted, great, it means that I'm meant to do my life in Australia. If my visa gets rejected, then I'm just going to move to Spain, and I'll be grateful for the 8 years that I've had in Australia, keep the positive out of it, and move on to that next chapter of my life. Over the last few months, every single night I was praying, please God, send me a sign, help me to make my decision. And like a sign, from above. I think that was the first week of September. I went to the gym. I remember crying that morning. I was training lower body. That session was awful. Only thing I could feel was my back. Anyways, did not want to train. Was in a very bad headspace. I finished my session, went to the locker room to change. I was in the bathroom, literally on the toilet, got a phone call. Saw the number and I was like, oh, for this person knows me. So out of curiosity, picked up the phone and I hear, "Hi Laurie, it's Pierre." My heart stopped beating for a second because this is the phone call that I was waiting for. I knew that this day would come where my lawyer would call me to give me the answer of my visa application. He did not make me wait to give me the answer straight away. He said, "Congratulations, your PR has been granted." I started to cry, but guys, when I cried, it was not even me being happy of knowing that I had a permanent visa to stay in Australia. It was more so a relief, first of all, because it was a good news and I needed to hear something positive after all that I've been through over the last few months. Also to know that I don't have any more obligation as to how long I'm allowed to travel for. So that was a big relief. Now, if you're not familiar with the visa application process, PR does not mean that I am an Australian citizen. This is the last step of the process, which is something that I'm still willing to do. Basically, the permanent residency allows you to live in Australia forever, but there are some rules. The PR expires every 5 years and you have to reapply for it. And in order to be eligible to reapply, you have to spend 2 years out of 5 in Australia. Why do I want to apply for the citizenship, knowing the fact that I'm unsure whether I'd like to stay in Australia for the rest of my life? Because having the Australian citizenship means having an Australian passport, which will be beneficial for me, but also for my kids, because I am planning on having some kids. Obviously, I need a partner first, but if I do have kids at some stage, I would love my kids to have the double nationality as well. So if they want to travel or if they like to live in Australia, they don't have to go through the same hustle as I had to go through over the last 8 years. And also just for myself, having that double passport would mean a lot to me because Australia saved me. I flew for the first time in Australia when I was 18 because I was depressed. I was really struggling with eating disorders at the time. And for me, it would mean a lot because I would not be here. And I'm not saying being here in Spain or like being here career-wise or be here as a pro bodybuilder. I'm saying I would not be alive if I did not move to Australia when I was 18. And for me to be eligible for the citizenship, I have to stay in Australia. I think it's for 9 months in a row without leaving Australia, and I can apply for the passport, which is the last step and it's also one of the easiest ones. So I'm pretty happy because that whole process was extremely tough, but the application for the passport is not that much of a hassle. So I'm not going to stay here in Europe for too long because I want to go back to Australia, do the 9 months, apply for the citizenship. At least that would give me the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want. For me, it just makes sense that I finish this whole process. I'm so close that I can almost taste it, so I'm definitely not going to give up now. So me being in Spain right now is actually just holidays. It's a symbolic trip to congratulate myself for staying strong during this whole process. Also because after having struggled for that long with my mental and physical health, I wanted to have a break, to lower my stress, to allow my back to be in the best condition, to keep healing. This is basically a healing trip and also the worst is behind me trip. Most people would celebrate their permanent visa in a very Aussie way. I went to the opera house and I did have a few drinks with my friends, but first thing I did when I had my PR granted was to book a flight to Spain. Get me out of here. So the plan. I am currently in Spain for 2 weeks, a little bit more than 2 weeks. My family is here as well, and my sister is coming today, which means that I'm going to meet my nephew for the first time, because the last time I saw her, she was pregnant, but then I flew back to Australia, and in the meantime, she gave birth in April, so earlier this year, and I've never met Maddie, so I'm really excited because I'm now an auntie. I was telling you that Spain has such a special place in my heart. Well, there you go. I'm going to meet my nephew for the first time in Spain. So I'm currently in Marbella, which is where I wanted to move. With my family, we've been going to Marbella a lot. Not necessarily Marbella, but Torremolinos, Fuengirola, it's an area that we know really well, and I've always said if I ever have to move to Spain, it would be around Marbella. So coming back now, celebrating my permanent residency with my family here, meeting my nephew for the first time, all the stars start to be aligned again, which makes me really happy. I'll stay here for a bit more than 2 weeks, then I am going to fly back to France. I'm going to use this time to look after my health because my back is still not 100%. It is better, but it's still very far from where it was before the injury. So I'm going to see more specialists to have second opinion whether I should get a surgery on it or not, and obviously spend some time with my friends back home and my family. I do not have my flights return back to Sydney yet. I'm just going to wait and see. I really want to give myself that time to heal, to enjoy, and to go back when I'll feel ready to, when I'll feel refreshed, because as I mentioned before, my life in Australia is hectic. It's really nice for me, and I'd say even necessary, to fly back to Europe once a year or once every couple of years in order to top up my batteries. And I'm always feeling extremely grateful again, and you know, really motivated to smash some more goals in Australia. So that is the plan. Now, there's a topic that I wanted to discuss with you guys, which I'm going to try not to cry, and I'm also going to try to make it as short as possible. But one of the reasons why I wanted to record this video for you today was because I have decided to be completely vulnerable and to share my whole story. I do share some parts on Instagram, and I did realize that a lot of people really appreciate me being vulnerable and sharing my real story, what I've been through as a kid, as a teenager, and over the last few years. If you've watched my video, the one that I've shared when I explained how the injury happened, I was saying that I felt the need to dissociate completely from the fitness industry, from social media. That's why I had a really long break. Then I had a chat with one of my friends. I was telling him that I am completely lost with where I want my business to go. Since I started working in the fitness industry, I am working mainly with people who want to transform their physique, whether that's fat loss or muscle gain. That was basically my niche. I was working with Gen Pop. I was also working with athletes, both male and female, whether that was to work towards a photo shoot or a prep for bodybuilding comp. But that felt very superficial. With this injury and me having a break from training and everything, I started to feel that I was not happy, not fulfilled with my job, because I felt a lack of purpose and I wanted to do something deeper. I felt like I had something more to give, but I did not know how to get them. So at some stage I started to think that I wanted to start studying again and become a psychologist, because somehow I often attract girls and guys that are suffering from eating disorder or that are struggling with food noises and things like that. And I've always helped this kind of people the best I could, giving them my techniques, like what works on me, which I called my bandage techniques, because I'm not a psychologist and it's not my scope of practice to heal what's in there. Let's be honest, eating disorder is very rarely an issue with food directly. It's more so something that is linked to a trauma, or like it's emotionally related. Anorexia, bulimia, everything is highly related to what's happening in your head, which is why I thought maybe this is where I should head towards. So I was talking to that friend saying that I'd like to do something more, or specialize myself into something where I could help people even more. He said to me, I don't think you should stop making content. I think you should share your healing journey and try to inspire people out there that are also going through a tough season in life, whether that's linked to eating disorders, injury, or depression. Because yes, something I did not mention before, with the injury in May and the fact that I was not able to train, not able to do what I love, me not recognizing myself anymore, seeing my body changing so fast the other way around, losing muscle mass, that I've spent hours and days and months and years building, the loss of identity that came with it, because if I'm not a bodybuilder, who am I? Training has always been for me my way to release all my negative energy. Training is my mental health. Training is more efficient than any anti-depression medication. That's something that I often say to my clients, but this is something that worked on me. With all this came back my eating disorders, and I fell into bulimia again. That's why when I had that chat with my friend, he was aware that I was struggling again with eating disorders and with depression. So he's the one who said to me, keep making content and document your healing journey. One day I shared a reel on Instagram. It was a very short reel. It was a video of me a year ago doing some single arm rows, where you can see that I've got lots of muscle, lots of definition. And it was written, crazy how life can go from this to this, which is where I am at the moment. Like, not even able to roll a 2 kg dumbbells because I'm in that much pain. Somehow that reel went viral. Not that I care about getting followers and likes and all that, but with this reel also came a bunch of leads, people reaching out saying that they're going through a tough season in life as well. At the start, it was more so people struggling with an injury. So yeah, potential clients, because I am inspiring them to keep training, keep moving, even after going through an injury and not knowing if I'll ever get back to where I was before. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Next step, I started to share a little bit more about my depression and my eating disorders. Same thing again, this content started to get viral. It started to get more leads, people reaching out saying, thank you so much for sharing your journey, because I feel less alone now. And the more I was sharing about this topic related to injuries or to mental struggles, the more people I would reach, the more engagement I would get, the more leads I would get. And this is when it started to click in my head, and I was like, Laurie, this is your purpose. This is what you were looking for. It makes me emotional because I went through so much of it the last few months, feeling like I had no purpose, knowing that I'm inspiring people to overcome a tough season in their lives as well. It means the world to me. And that's why I'm taking the time to reply to every single message and most comments, the most relevant ones, because I want people to know that they are not alone and that you can overcome this kind of struggles in your life. So yeah, if you've noticed that my content has drastically changed over the last few weeks, that's why earlier this year I was sharing, because I had to. Obviously, as an online coach, you need to share some content, you need to be consistent. But for me, that was not something that I was enjoying doing anymore. It was more like a chore. I started to feel very anxious and overwhelmed. But now, guys, I've got all these ideas and my head is just boiling constantly because I've got that many ideas of creating content. But it's like, it's relevant content. It's not random videos. All the content comes from me. I am writing my own captions. I'm not using ChatGPT. Everything comes from me, from my soul. It takes time, but even though it takes time, time flies, and it seems like it's not even work, because it's really something that I enjoy doing, and I could spend hours, days preparing this kind of content. And if it can help people out there to overcome some struggles, then I'm more than happy to do it, you know. That makes me really happy and hopeful for the future, and I feel like I now know where I want my business to go. It is going to go down that route, not just I'm helping you to lose X amount of weight, because losing fat is easy, but chances are that if you're struggling in your head, you are going to put the fat back on. So what's the point? What's the reason behind you constantly putting on weight? Why are you binging at night? What emotions are you trying to numb? It's more to this kind of thing that I'm passionate about. I could speak about that for hours, but this is not the main topic of that video. I wanted to talk about my story. To give you a little bit of context, I'm originally from France, if you can't tell. I do have a little bit of an accent left, but I've been living in Australia for 8 years, so I often say that my accent is now a mix of all the people that I've met along the way, but I think on some words you can still hear my French accent. I was born in Strasbourg, which is my hometown, lovely city. I grew up in a family of gymnasts. Dad was a gymnast, my grandma was a gymnast, my dad was my coach. As I was a kid, I started gymnastics at the age of 2, and from a very young age my dad noticed that I had potential to do something with it. I started with a proper coach at the age of 4. I started competing at the age of 8, and I was good. From a very young age, I started to win most of the competitions, pretty much all of them. Alongside with that, the relationship that I had with my dad was very particular. He was, still is, my role model. My dad he's here. And that's why I've got really, really high standards with males in general. He's always treated me like a princess. My dad is also someone who doesn't share his emotions. He's never said I love you to me, and I always felt like I had to deserve his love by making him proud. And because he was a gymnast himself and he was my coach as I was a baby, we had this special connection, this special thing that he was not having with my sister, because even though she was a gymnast, she was not as good. It was more so for fun that she was doing it, but I was doing it to become a national champion. So we had that thing together. And he would also put a lot of pressure on my shoulders, but not only in gymnastics, also he would say, if you're not in top 3 of your school, well then, you know, it's so I grew up with this kind of pressure of I want to be perfect to make him proud. But yeah, it was pretty wild. Like, I remember when I was falling from the beam, the first thing I would think of was not even, oh, I'm gutted because I'm not gonna place, or maybe I'm not gonna finish first. The first thought I had was, oh my god, that is going to be so disappointed. That's just to explain you the kind of pressure that I had on my shoulders as a child. Gymnastics is also a sport where you are chasing perfection. You have to be very elegant, your legs have to be straight, your toes have to be pointed, and the gymnasts that succeed the most are quite petite, quite lean, but very strong, very muscular. So me growing up with a lot of pressure from my dad in order to succeed in gymnastics at school, and on top of that, the pressure that we had as gymnasts to maintain a certain physique all year round in order to perform the best of our abilities. Well, that was the perfect mix to lead to eating disorders. I was a very happy kid. I grew up in this kind of family where when you go to your grandma's, you're not even done with your first plate, she's already topped it up, where there's always desserts, and once that you're done with the dessert, she would come 2 hours later with a cake. So I grew up in a family where food is a massive thing, and I always ate a lot of food, which had no impact until I was 16, because I was training a lot. I was at practice every single day, and on weekends I was competing. So even though I was eating a lot, I would just burn everything. So I always had a good body. I'll probably insert a picture so you see the body type that I had until I was 16. I knew that it was impacting a lot of gymnasts my age. Like, for example, really, really good gymnasts that at some stage started to put on weight, and then their career started to go downhill from that moment onwards, because once that you start putting on weight, it's much harder to perform. I was not having this kind of issues, but everyone was always saying, the day Laurie stops gymnastics, she's going to get huge. Long story short, I won the French national championship when I was 15, which was the biggest achievement of my gymnastics career. The following summer, I got into a car accident with my dad where I broke my shoulder. That summer, with me not being able to train, I was still eating the same amount of food. I started to put on weight. When my shoulder started to get better, I tried to get back to gymnastics. I couldn't. I just could not go back to the level that I was at with my new body, and that was basically the end of my career. I then did a different type of gymnastics later on, but it was not the same. It was not the beam, bars, vault and floor the gymnastics that I did afterwards was called team gym, and it's something that I loved as well because it's mainly floor and vault, so it's like powerful elements where you can be a little bit heavier, but this is actually going to help because you've got more power. And even as a gymnast, my favorite elements were floor and vault because I am a powerful athlete. This is where I was the best at. So even though that summer I put on a lot of weight, I did not really notice it because, as I mentioned before, I've never really struggled with it previously. But one day my dad made a comment and he said something like, oh, you should slow down because you're getting fat. If it was someone else saying this to me, I would have probably been fine. But because it was my dad, and because my dad has such a massive importance in my life, that had a huge impact on me. And this is when I started to Google how to lose weight. At that stage, it was not even fat, I just wanted to lose weight. Obviously, that was when I was 16, so that was 10 years ago. The things that you could find on Google back then was just ridiculous. It was more so like, you have to do this kind of exercise. Back then, I would still think that you could spot reduce. I remember Googling that, how to lose fat around the triceps. You could find things like exercises to lose fat on the triceps. But yeah, I mean, I was not a coach, so I was just doing it. And alongside with that, I also started to develop a toxic relationship with food. I downloaded an app on my phone which was called The Fat Secrets. You have to put all your data in, you have to say how much weight you want to lose, and that calculates your calories. I had no idea what the macros were. From memory, I think my phone calculated something like 1,200. I started to discover what calories are and what has more calories, and this is also when I started to get rid of certain food groups, carbs mainly, started to get rid of chocolates, cakes, pizza, pasta, bread, sauces, sweets, drinks like sodas and stuff. The most obvious things at the start, but then it started to be more and more and more and more. And towards the end, I was literally eating only vegetables and fruits, no protein, but not all vegetables and fruits, all the greens basically. I was eating a lot of lettuce, I was eating a lot of watermelon, a lot of rock melon, but I would not eat apples, oranges, or like a banana. Oh my gosh, never. Way too high in calories. So like strawberries and all the veggies that are very, very low in calories. And it would work. When you start to lose weight, people around you start to say, oh, you've lost a bit of weight. You look better like that. Because people say this, well then you just want to keep going and you keep going and you keep going. Me being a gymnast, been involved in sports my whole life, I've always been upper body dominant. I had a big back, looking this way and being so focused on my gymnastics career. Like basically gymnastics was my whole life. My only friends were teammates from gymnastics, and I was spending so much time at practice. I had zero interest whatsoever in guys. But with me turning 16 and having to stop gymnastics because of that injury, and going to high school and having to transition towards a normal teenager life, I felt like I did not belong. I really struggled to understand why guys were not really interested in me either. Because yeah, at that stage I started to be like a normal teenager and have interest in guys as well, but guys were not really interested in me. And what I've noticed is that when I started to lose weight, I started to have more interest from guys. So all this combined together created that message in my head that the skinnier I would get, the better looking I would be, the more interest from guys I would get, and my dad would be more proud of me, or he would love me more if I lose weight. This is how I fell into anorexia. Anorexia lasted 2 years until I was 18, basically lasted all high school. At the age of 18, I was 36 kg. I don't even have that many pictures, because even though I liked to be skinnier, I could see that it was not beautiful either. I don't know, it's a bit of a weird one, but at the start you lose weight, everyone starts to compliment you, and then you reach that stage where people start to be like, oh, I think now you're good, you should slow down. Anorexia is a mental condition. It's as if you don't really hear what people say. The only thing that matters is that you get skinnier and skinnier and skinnier, because you think that the skinnier you'll get, the happier you'll get. Anorexia to me is a form of control. You are in control, and whenever you don't eat, you feel empowered. When you look around you and you see other people eating what you don't eat, in my head I was like, they're weak. They're all weak, but you're strong. You're strong because you're resisting. It is a proper mental condition. And if you're not familiar with it, do never underestimate anorexia. If someone around you is struggling with anorexia, you should really try to at least offer your help, because it is something that is very serious. I never ended up in hospital, but I nearly did. When I was 36, just going up the stairs was a chore. I started to use my mom's lift because my mom is in a wheelchair, so in my house back home we've got lifts. I would always wear different layers, oversized shirts, oversized hoodies in order to hide it, so no one really knew how bad it was, especially my family. They had no idea. One day I did some shopping with my sister. I was getting changed and she saw the bones on my spine. She freaked out. I remember her saying that I need to stop losing weight and that I need to start eating more, but that's about it. So the rest of my family didn't really know, or at least I thought they didn't know. Obviously I had a very weird behavior towards food, but at that stage I was mostly cooking my own meals. So how did I get out of anorexia? Well, once again, thanks to my dad. One day I came back from school around lunchtime. My mom was cooking. I had prepared some vegetables, meal prepped some the day before, and it was just steamed vegetables. I arrived at home. She was using my vegetables. She was cooking them in a pan with some olive oil. Came from a good intention because she knew I was coming back from school and she thought, oh, I'm just going to heat up her vegetables. But when I saw that my vegetables were in contact with oil, I lost my shit. But guys, I've rarely seen myself being that angry. I started yelling at her, insulted her. My dad was in the kitchen when that happened. My dad doesn't talk much and he never said anything about me getting skinnier. But that day he said to me, Laurie, shut up now, look at yourself, you ugly. These words, guys, they still resonate in my head. From that moment onwards, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start to eat. Guys, you have no idea how many people I've lost going through anorexia. My best friend from high school, she did not want to be friends with me anymore because she was saying that I was starving myself to death and I was not the same. I used to be very funny, bubbly, energetic, but with the fact that I was not eating, I completely changed. It was not funny anymore. So yeah, it was a chore to hang out with me. If I wasn't myself, I would probably not even want to hang out with me. Through anorexia, I've lost a bunch of people because I was isolating myself a lot. So hearing this from my dad's mouth was more than enough for me to make me eat again. That was at the end of the school term and I knew that I was going to start in a new city, in a new school at the end of the summer, an international business school, and my goal was to put on approximately 10 kgs before I start school, which was like 3 months after. My goal was to put on weight as fast as possible so I could arrive in that school looking good, feminine, normal again. So that summer, guys, was the best summer ever because I ate whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I was eating every single day, a lot of chocolate, a lot of Nutella, best life. I was obviously putting on weight, and when I started that business school in September, I was around 45 kg, something like that. I'm quite petite, I'm 159 centimeters, if you don't know, never reached 160. So to me, it was a good weight. I moved to Lyon, I think it's like the second biggest city in France. I was like, great, fresh start. No one knows me as the girl suffering from anorexia here. No one knows about my past. No one knows me as an ex-gymnast. So I can start all over again. But the tricky thing was that I had just spent a whole summer eating whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, without restriction. I was still eating the same way when I arrived in Lyon. I kept on putting on weight to the point where I started to have vergeture. I forgot the word. But yeah, I woke up one day and I saw some of these vergetures on my boobs, here and here, as if it happened overnight. And I was like, what the actual I literally just got fat like that. Obviously, because I was still struggling with anorexia, the way that I was seeing myself in the mirror was very different than what I looked like in real life. I was seeing myself way fatter. So I've gone from I'm skinny, I need to put on fat, to I'm now too fat. How do I reverse that? Or at least how do I stop putting on fat? And this is how I fell into bulimia. I was making myself vomit and also lots of cardio. How the first episode happened, what I call episode, is when I make myself vomit. I was watching a pastry show on TV and I was snacking on sugar peak, which is cereals. I was watching TV and I was just eating. When I finished it, I started to feel guilty and I looked at the calories at the back. The whole thing is probably around 4,000 calories. I was like, gosh, I need to get this out of my body, otherwise I'm going to get fat overnight. So then I searched on the internet, how do I make myself vomit? And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try. Went into the bathroom, put my fingers down my throat and everything came out. It came out very easily, and honestly, thinking back, I wish it was not that easy for me to make myself vomit, because if that first time I would have struggled, I would have probably been very discouraged. But because it was that easy, something in my head clicked and I was like, whoa, I can eat whatever I want, whenever I want. I just have to bend over, make myself vomit. And it's as if nothing's ever happened. So in my head, I thought it was actually really smart. I was like, that's great, because food was already an addiction because of the summer that I had just spent, where I was eating whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I developed that addiction for food. I was eating only chocolates and cakes and stuff like that. I couldn't have just gone back to my boring vegetables that I was eating every single day when I was suffering from anorexia. I was still craving all that chocolate and carbs and all the butter and the fat. So yeah, in my head I was like, perfect, I'm just going to go ahead this way. It was easier for me to suffer from anorexia than bulimia, because anorexia was something that people could see. Bulimia, no one has ever seen anything. Yeah, sometimes I would have a little bit of redness on my face, or my voice would be a little bit broken, but I was just saying that I was sick. No one ever found out anything until I admitted it. I said it to my parents years and years after. Anorexia was too much control. Bulimia was the complete loss of control. When I was having an episode, it's as if I had something inside of me, like an animal, that would wake up and take control of myself. I could not fight against it. I started shaking like I needed to have an episode. I was in that business school. In this kind of school, it's often you go to school for 2-3 hours and then you have to do the rest on your own, which gave me plenty of time to plan my episodes. And I had days where I could have 5 to 10 episodes per day. Sometimes I was just having back-to-back episodes. I was eating. I was that full that I knew I had to empty my stomach, would make myself vomit, then go back in the kitchen and have another episode straight away. And sometimes I would have them in the middle of the night, because I would wake up in sweat, shaking, as in I need to put something in my mouth. This thing is awake. I could not resist. I struggled way more with bulimia than anorexia. Anorexia was 2 years of my life, so 16 to 18, and then bulimia, I'm 27 now. Bulimia is 18 till now, because as I said to you, I fell back into bulimia when I got injured in May. So it's been now 9 years that I'm struggling with bulimia. So yeah, bulimia is definitely way more of an issue for me. And obviously with bulimia came depression, because once again, it's not just related to food. For me personally, it's always been a void that I was feeling in my chest that I needed to fill up. And now that I've seen a bunch of psychologists, I can kind of explain where that hole comes from. It's probably the fact that my dad never said I love you to me, and also me being scared of putting on weight because I was scared that my dad would love me less. And this mixed with my childhood, having to be perfect at school and gymnastics, all this together, that constant search for perfection, which obviously is not realistic. High-level sports mixed with a lack of love from her dad. And obviously now, looking back and being more mature and being an adult, I know that my dad loves me. He just struggles to express it. No, it's more that he expresses it in different ways than saying it out loud. And it's more so through his actions. But being younger, I could not understand that. I thought that he was just not loving me and that I had to deserve his love. Bulimia comes back whenever I'm struggling mentally, when I'm going through a tough season in life, but it's nothing compared to what it used to be. When I say it comes back, I'm gonna have 2 days back to back where I'm going to have a couple of episodes per day. So you probably wonder, how did I overcome, or at least learn to manage my bulimia issue? Well, I was not happy with the studies that I was doing back home, I knew that this is not what I wanted to do with my life. I did a business school because my dad did a business school, my mom as well, my sister as well. But deep down, I always knew that I wanted to work in the sport industry. I was really struggling with my mental health. None of my family really knew because I was not living at home anymore. No one knew about bulimia. In my international business school, after the first 3 months, we had to do an internship overseas. Initially, I wanted to do my internship in the US. I'm more of a city girl than a beach girl. So I always thought I'd be happier in a big city like New York. But I could not find any internship in New York. So last minute, I found an internship in a surf school in Bondi Beach, which is how I arrived in Australia. When I arrived, I was still struggling with bulimia, but because I was living with other people, it was much harder for me to have episodes. Most people would think that I fell in love with Australia, and this is why I decided to stay, but it's not true. I actually did not really like Australia itself at the start, but I fell in love really quickly with the fitness industry. I was enjoying this kind of lifestyle where fitness was much bigger. I signed up in a gym, met one of the coach who was also a teacher in a school to become a personal trainer. I had a few chats with him. Down the road, he also became my first coach. His name is Luca. I learned so much through him. He got me into weights. Thanks to him, I ended up convincing my parents that I wanted to study in Australia to become a personal trainer. Did my Cert 3, Cert 4, started to work in the fitness industry, did my first bodybuilding comp, then, ended up turning pro. And this is how it all started for me. Many people think that bodybuilding can trigger eating disorder, can lead to eating disorder. But for me, it was the complete opposite, because before that, I was seeing food as evil. I was scared of food, and now food is my friend. I know I have to eat in order to reach my goals. Because of anorexia and bulimia, I've lost all my signals. I don't know when I'm hungry, I don't know when I'm full. So by learning about nutrition, by tracking my nutrition and knowing the importance of fueling your body, training the right way, I completely shifted my vision on food. The relationship I've got with food now is way more healthy. Now I eat to fuel my body, I eat to perform. Before that, I was constantly thinking about food. By tracking my nutrition, I know how much I need to eat, when I need to eat, because I'm timing my meals. So for me, this is what saved me, and this is what allows me to live a somehow normal life. I know it's not normal for everybody else, but this is how I'm living at the moment, and so far it's working well, except when I'm going through a tough season where I fall back into these bad habits. But it's not happening a lot, and even when it happens, I can bounce back into my routine pretty quickly. So yeah, that's basically my story. I obviously won't say that I'm grateful that all these things have happened to me, because I have been suffering for many years and my health took a toll. But I believe that I'm here for a reason, and if my purpose in life is to deliver a message of hope that if I made it through, everyone can make it through. If you're struggling with depression, with anorexia, with bulimia, with a complicated relationship with your parents, well then it's not over for you. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, this is me, the most vulnerable side of me. You now know everything about my upbringing, my relationship with my dad, my career as a gymnast, my career as a bodybuilder, why I'm here today, and the message that I have to deliver. I am going to end this video here. I hope that you guys enjoyed this kind of format. If that's the case, remember to like and subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram if you'd like to follow a way more up-to-date journey with where I'm at with my back recovery and the kind of content that I'm sharing at the moment. And I will see you guys in another video. Once again, thank you so much for all the support. Love you guys, means the whole world to me. I will talk to you soon. Bye.